This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
Hey, welcome back. It is Jonathan Clark. We're in the studio with the lead singer and songwriter of the record-breaking multi-platinum band Shinedown. 14 number one singles on Billboard's rock chart. Millions of albums sold. The current album right here, Attention, Attention. And they're playing, well, they're not playing. They're doing a Q&A and a performance at the 92nd Street Y here in Manhattan tomorrow night, Thursday, September 12th. And they'll be at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City September 21st. All the tour dates, shinedown.com. Brent Smith, from Shinedown. How are you, man?
I'm well, man. You're like a hype man, dude. I'm going to take you with me everywhere.
I got to get all the info
Locking
out.
Down all the stats. I'm into it. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. And I want to say that this show debuted in 2001. And I know that the debut album, Leave a Whisper, came out in 2003.
Yep.
So I've been playing Shinedown records since the beginning of this show.
I love it.
For like 18 years now. So it's great to finally meet you and have you in the studio.
It's an honor to be here.
I know you guys at the beginning of this month played the PNC Bank Arts Center in Jones Beach, but I bet you never thought you would be playing sort of at the 92nd Street Y here in New York City at a YMCA of all things. Right?
I love that.
Maybe back in the day you maybe even played a YMCA. I don't even know. But
possibly. I had a fake ID when I was 14 because I started playing in bands when I was 14 and I needed an ID at least that said I was 18 so that I could get into the club. So I probably played a YMCA down there eventually.
Or the Veterans for Foreign, VFW, whatever.
Absolutely.
So that is a Q&A and a performance spread throughout as well. It's a pretty prestigious gig, though, because I know at the 92Y...
We were overwhelmed when we got the opportunity because we knew what it was and how big it was. We were just kind of stunned.
Yeah, Paul McCartney, Jimmy Page, I think Iggy Pop is doing something there later this month or something.
Not bad company.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there have been many legendary concept albums over the years. Were there specific concept albums that you grew up with and listened to a lot that made you go in this direction? And when I say concept for this latest album, Attention, Attention, I say sort of. I qualify it as sort of. But were there ones that you really, was it Pink Floyd, The Wall, or anything that you listened to a lot growing up, or...
Obviously, Pink Floyd's The Wall definitely is pretty cemented, in my brain. That's the first kind of visual I ever saw where, an artist, a band, took the time to not only make the music, make the album, but they had a visual with it. So that was the first time I really saw something of that, the way that band presented that.
The film is intense, too.
Very intense.
Yeah.
And then you think about like Operation Mindcrime, it was the same kind of dynamic with Queensryche. That's a little bit more current per se. But the big one for me really was Tommy by The Who.
Yeah.
And I just saw the film Rocket Man, which is the musical where they used the songs basically to tell the life of Elton John.
Did you like it?
Was remarkable.
Now,
I thought it was amazing.
More, Bohemian Rhapsody or Rocket Man?
Two totally different films.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a bit more of a biopic, if you will, in Rhapsody, and they did focus a lot on Mercury, but they did that very well too, and I thought they did that with a lot of class.
Yeah.
With Rocket Man, it was such a different expression and execution, if you will. And I love the fact that they were completely two totally different films because Rocket Man is looked at more as a musical, I think, but they are both equally, I think, extraordinarily, I think they're awesome. Well, but they're totally different.
I want to hold up this album cover again because people, when they first look at this album cover, they're like, what is the image on there? And you explained to us earlier that is an exclamation point.
Yes.
It's
an original explanation point by a gentleman by the name of Mark Obreski at Atlantic Records, which is our illustrious label of over 20 years now.
Right.
And myself and Eric Bass, who is our bass player, but much more than a bass player because Eric is actually the producer of Attention, Attention.
Yes. It's very ironic that his name is spelled B-A-S-S, by the way.
You're not the first person to say that.
His whole life.
Probably.
My name is Eric Bass, and I play bass.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Eric, though, in this album, because he's the producer, he's the main engineer, and he also mixed the album, but I met Eric almost 16 years ago, and the guy can play like 7 different instruments. It drives him.
I hate guys like that.
It drives him also
fair.
crazy that he has literally perfect pitch. It's not because he's showing off. He just has it because his mother is a very, very skilled piano player and a vocal coach. So growing
is he like
up,
the kind of guy that's like if a song doesn't resolve properly,
loses his mind.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
But once we met each other, he started to open up to what we call happy accidents. Because sometimes,
those are the best.
Those are the best, yeah. And but I got to tell you, man, it's working with him and taking this project on. It's a little bit. It's different when a band goes to the label and they say it's our 6th record. But we had a lot of great teachers on the other 5 albums, male and female, and a lot of different engineers, producers, and what have you. It was time for us to do it in-house, and I have to give a lot of credit not only to Bill McGathy, who's our manager, but also Julie Greenwald at Atlantic Records and Craig Kalman, because they've never, ever censored us. They've never, ever pushed us for time. They're like, bring it to us when it's ready. And the thing is about, looking at this album, there's nobody else that could have done it but Eric, because Eric made it sound 1,000% authentic to us. And it's not a traditional concept record, but it is a story. And it's a really, really big story about a lot of people because it's an album about the world.
And there's an interesting story about one of the songs you wrote for this album, and the song is about Eric.
It is about Eric.
What song is that?
So the song on the album is called Get Up. And the interesting thing about Get Up was Eric had the piano part for quite some time. So when we embarked on the first part of the writing process, we were doing some other material. This is a very long story. I'm going to try to condense it as best I can. But so we finally got to the piano part. I was like, let's see what's going on here. So we went over it. We kind of drew out some melodies and things like that. I took it overnight. I came back to the studio a few days later. But the thing is when I'm listening to the demo that he made for me, I knew what I was going to write it about. And I was nervous. So when I came back to the studio, we cut the vocal. He was like, give me till tomorrow, 3 p.m. Gave me a call the next day, came in. He played it for me once. I looked at him. I said, can I hear it one more time? Played it again. And I looked at him and I said, you know what this is about, right? And he said, yeah, it's about me. And my heart kind of fell on the ground because I thought I had stepped over a line with our friendship, and it was the complete opposite. He was overwhelmed with how honest it was and that he wasn't ashamed or embarrassed by it at all. Because Eric deals with something called clinical depression. And this isn't something where he wakes up and maybe you have a case of the Mondays or something. This is something that he deals with on a daily basis.
Bruce Springsteen talked about that in his book. He was in bed for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a
with the shades drawn. I mean.
But the powerful thing about Eric is that he is the biggest supporter, especially now, of letting people know from all walks of life. He doesn't want people to be quiet. He doesn't want you to feel ashamed or embarrassed or to pigeonhole yourself and put yourself in a corner, because you're going to be judged no matter what. But the reality of Get Up, because it was so honest, it allowed us to know the path we were going to take to write the record, because Eric said, if we're going to be this bold and this honest, we have to go all the way in. And once we wrote Get Up, it got us to Dark Side, which got us to Pyro, to Brilliant, to Kill Your Conscience, to the opening track Devil. Like, once we had Get Up, we knew where we were going. And it's a record that is really, in essence, it's an album about not being afraid to fail in life, because you're going to need that. Like, you're not going to be perfect all the time, but you're also not going to be defined by your failures. You're going to be defined by the fact that you refuse to give up.
Yeah. You address your sobriety on this album with the song Monster. And this album was the first album you wrote completely sober, right?
First record I ever wrote sober.
Wow. Yeah. And that was, you were a little worried about that.
I used to think that I had to be messed up to write material that was messed up. I know that might sound very morbid, but the reality is that, the crazy thing was with this album, because I was clean when I wrote it and I was clean when I performed it on the mic, was I didn't even realize it. And the thing was, Eric brought it up. And we were doing a short documentary about just the making of, towards the point when we had just finished the mastering. And the person that was interviewing Eric at the time was like, what's the biggest thing you're proud of on this album? And I'm sitting next to him, and he looks at me, and he goes, I'm proud of him. And I'm like going, what the heck? You know, and he goes, you may not realize this, and this is on camera, but Eric's looking at me. He's like, you may not realize it, man, but you wrote this whole thing with me. And, you know, the other gentlemen in the band, Barry Kirch and Zach Myers, because we all wrote it together. But he was like, you did the whole thing clean, man. Like, and you used to think that you had to, you know, to come up with these, because I'm the main lyricist in the band.
Yeah.
And it was just ebb and flow and stream of consciousness, man. Because honestly, a friend of mine a couple of years ago told me something, and this does resonate with me. And if anybody's listening to this and they're questioning, you know, their sobriety, or they're thinking about getting clean, because I can't tell you what to do. You got to find that out for yourself. But something that helped me was a friend of mine told me one time, they go, you are way more dangerous when you're sober. And for whatever reason, that made a lot of sense to me, because what they were saying was this other guy that comes out when you are inebriated, that guy's trying to kill you. Like, and that's why Monsters, for me personally, because everybody pulls from Monsters, that particular track, differently in their own lives. But for me, it was the understanding that I'm never going to not be a drug addict or an alcoholic. I do have a past, but I also have a future. And the reality of that is that's part of who I am. And I don't have to like it, but I have to respect it to keep it dormant. And that was a big thing for me when my friend was like, dude, I know that you think that it's fun and everybody likes hanging out with you when you're high and this and that and the other, but we cannot stand that guy. And quite frankly, dude, you're just way more dangerous when you're clean. And that helped me out.
Well, on that song, you made 2 videos for that song?
Yeah,
you made
an animated video.
One, and then a sort of not a regular one, but is it bizarre to you that the non-animated one has been watched 10 million times? I just looked at the other day, and it was like 10 million. I mean, that's a lot.
So that particular video is part of, once again, a much broader story. So we talked about this off air a little while ago. You know, we realized the album from a sonic standpoint, the goal was always to realize it from a visual standpoint. So that video for Monsters is part of a full-length feature film that's going to be coming out next year in 2020, which is the entire story of Attention told on the big screen.
Wow.
So there's another reason with that. We've had one director the entire time for this album. So the 4 videos that have been created already has been under the same director. His name's Bill Yukik, and he's outstanding on many, many different levels. But I think that all those videos too, especially that one, it doesn't look like a music video. It looks like cinema because it's a part of a bigger story. So it's not even the process of putting this film together too is like, we don't want people to come into the theater and sit down and go, well, this is probably going to be like watching 14 music videos. That's not what this is.
No.
Yeah, this is very, very deep.
Now, do you know, are you going to stream it? Are you going to show it in theaters? You haven't decided yet?
We're putting everything together right now because we're finding the right partners, because this is definitely something that even in this day and age right now, if you want to be specific to like genre, no one's doing it in the way that we're doing it. A unique thing, too, about the director, Bill, is I found it interesting. He'll tell you that he's an editor, first and foremost, before he's a director. And he actually edited Lemonade from Beyonce. He did that whole project with her.
Wow.
So, and I didn't know that when we started to work with him. So just watching him on a daily basis and seeing how he does certain things and how he looks at it, by far, definitely, I'm sure at a certain point in time you'll be able to stream it, but we want it to have an authentic and a very real theatrical release.
Will it be titled Attention?
Title hasn't been figured out yet.
So, and this will be sort of the soundtrack?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a soundtrack, but it's going to take you on, just like the audio takes you on a roller coaster sonically, the goal is to really put something out there that kind of really engages an audience in a different way. We have an idea as to how we're going to put it together. We've already filmed it all, but we're the band that we don't ever write the same album over and over again, and we try not to ever write the same song twice.
Well,
so
that's good.
We're just continuously wanting to evolve as artists.
His name is Brent Smith, of course, from Shinedown. The band will be at the 92nd Street Y here in Manhattan tomorrow night, Thursday, September 12th, and at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City, September 21st. All the tour dates, shinedown.com. Speaking of tour dates, is this right? You guys tour 280 days of the year?
Well, we average it out, like the tours that have been going on over the last probably, 20 years or so. We're average on the road. Well, I'm average on the road 280 days out of the year because outside of the band, I'm also doing other things in regards to Shinedown, but it's not always touring. There's a lot of business going on, and it is called the music business for a reason.
Yeah.
But we have other projects that are being put together as well. But yeah, man, when we decided to go out on the road and tour, we're really solid because, we know how to tour.
There was one album where you were out on the road for more than 2 years or something?
The third album, The Sound of Madness, we toured for 37 months, and we did over 440-something shows. I lost count at a certain point.
I don't know how you do it. I've gone on the road for like a week at a time, and even after a week, I'm like, I don't want to fly in a plane again. I don't want to sleep in a strange bed. I want to take a shower in my own bathroom. You really got to have to, it's a bizarre lifestyle.
But not to us. I'm not a big fan of trying to normalize people's lives because everybody has a different way that they express themselves and everybody has a different path. To me, I'm better when I'm moving. And the main thing that keeps me grounded, the number one thing in my life that keeps me grounded is my son, who's going to turn 12 this year.
All right.
And that he's my priority at all times. But the life that I'm attempting and working hard to give him requires me to be on the road. But I do love what I do. And all of my guys, we all have families and we all have people that love us and miss us, but they understand what this is.
My point is you've got that amazing 2 hours where you're on stage.
Right.
Then the rest of the time is maybe an interview here and there, but it's traveling and waiting.
To a point. With us, we do a lot with the fan base. I've always been very vocal about this because it's the absolute truth. We have one boss in Shinedown. It just happens to be everyone in the audience. So our meet and greets are very, very unique. Our fan club and how we present ourselves is very unique. Most artists, when you do VIPs at a show and stuff like that, we cap it at 40 people. We used to do 180 people plus a day, depending, but you couldn't do anything personal with them. So we cap it at 40. The first 10 minutes is a Q&A where you can ask us anything you want. You don't have to feel like you got to ask us something, but somebody will always start it off. 2 of us get on one side and 2 of us get on another, and then we meet in the middle. But you get a one-on-one with each person, and then we give you that time to talk to you and to know how appreciated you are from us. And then once that's done, the signing's done, everybody gets a picture with us. And we try to make it, we don't want to run people through like cattle. We don't think that that's a good experience.
Okay, take your photo next.
And we're not saying anything to any other artist, male or female, of any style of music. If that's what you got to do, then that's fine. It's just not what we choose to do.
Yeah. His name is Brent Smith from Shinedown. The current album, Attention, Attention. Everyone should go out and buy this out. If they haven't already, they should go out and get it. And if you're in New York City, they're going to be at the 92nd Street Y here in Manhattan tomorrow night, Thursday, September 12th. They're on tour, and they'll be at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City, September 21st. All the tour dates, shinedown.com. Let's get to the current single, Attention, Attention, which is a title track. What more can you tell us about this song?
This was, I don't want to call it the sleeper, but the interesting thing was that there were a lot of the songs on the album that, right out of the gate when it came out last year, it was released May 4th of 2018. So we started with Devil, which starts the story. The next single was Get Up. Even though we released a video and the Grat track for the album was a song called Human Radio that had an accompaniment of a video as well. And then Monsters. So now with Attention, Attention being the 4th single, we were filming the movie. And so the day that we did Attention, Attention, I won't give anything away too much because the video is actually I think it's the 11th today. So I think we're about 7 days away from the video coming out for this particular track. But that was a lot of the reason why we decided to do this fourth, because we had a different single in mind. And then the day we shot Attention, Attention, the song, like out of the blue, man, like we did one take of it for the band portion, and like the crew and like we shut down 2 city blocks in Los Angeles, California, and we did this on top of a giant building. And there's reasons for all of that.
Yeah.
Because things get tied in. But I remember we did one take of it, man, and everybody was just like, "Where have you hidden this song?" Like,
wow.
And everybody was just like, "That is just fire, man." And then we keep doing takes of it and doing takes. There were people coming out of their apartment buildings in the windows, like yelling at us in between takes, like, "Yo, man, that track is dope." Like everybody, like there's all this, like the universe, being really, really loud, letting us know, like, here's this song that's the title track.
Yeah.
That's kind of been in the corner in the shadows, patiently waiting to make its voice heard, and it made its voice heard very, very loud that day, and that's why we chose to do it next.
Do you remember the first time you came to New York City, and was it a gig or was it a visit to Ahmet Ertegun at Atlantic Records?
I'm not going to change anything, because the very first time that I came to New York to meet Ahmet Ertegun was an amazing experience, but the very first time I came, I was signed by Atlantic Records with another band. 9 months later, I was dropped, and then I was re-signed 2 weeks later to an artist development deal, which is a deal that essentially Ahmet Ertegun created. And then that led me on a 3.5-year road to creating Shinedown.
Wow.
And the very first time I went to New York City was after the dropping of the first contract. And the lawyer that I was with at the time, he got me a meeting with DreamWorks. And so I remember flying in just for the day. I didn't even stay the night. I just flew in, sang a couple of songs for this person at DreamWorks, had to get back in the car, go back to the airport, and I flew back home. Obviously, I never heard anything back from DreamWorks.
Yeah.
And then about 2 weeks later, I got called by our A&R, which is Steve Robertson, who's still our A&R to this day.
Yeah.
Called me back like 2 weeks later from that and said, "I want to re-sign you." And I was like, "You just dropped me." And he was like, "Yeah, I want to sign you to a development deal."
Wow.
And then the rest is history.
And so tell me briefly about your meetings or meeting with Ahmet Ertegun.
So the very first time I met him was the first time that we were getting ready to begin we were getting ready to record what became our debut album, Leave a Whisper. We had all the songs ready, and we were about a week away from going to Los Angeles and starting the real recording. Came into his office. At the time, his main liaison was Craig Cowman.
Yeah.
And, because he was I don't want to say Craig was being groomed, but he was learning from the man.
The master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because me and Craig have known each other for the better part of, 20 years. Still one of my dearest friends, not even just in the industry, just one of my dearest friends in the world. Same with Julie Greenwald. So it was a long day of meeting everybody. This is also when Balazzoli was still at Atlantic.
Yeah.
So I met with him. I got to see the bow from Kashmir and Led Zeppelin in his office and all that kind of stuff. Like literally the shelving that was around his office was just like, there was like 150 Grammys. It was nuts. And meeting everybody and what have you. And I think it was like 9 o'clock at night, 9 or 10 at night. And we go down to Ahmet's floor, and Craig comes out, and he goes, "He's ready for you now." He apologizes. He knows it's late, but he's busy. And I'm like, "It's all good, man." And so we go in there, and we have a very nice conversation. And he looked at me very genuinely and was like, I've heard some of the demos. Would you sing to me right now?" And the thing is that we didn't have any instruments because I was there, and I was like, "Well, I don't have an instrument." And he was like, "You don't need an instrument. Just sing me a song."
Yeah, you got an instrument. It's your voice.
And I remember, man, I can't remember what song I sang to him. I think it was a song called "Notice Me" that never made any of the records. It was like a demo we were working. But this is the freshest thing in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, and he literally, I start to clear my throat and get ready to sing for him. He's like, whoa, wait a minute. I need to, just one second. And he slides his slippers off. I've never told the story. He slides his slippers off, man. He puts his arms way up high on this couch that he's sitting on. He leans back. He closes his eyes and he goes, go ahead. And I just sang a cappella to him. And I'll never forget, like, he leaned up after like 3 minutes or so of me doing the song and what have you, and he looked at me and he smiled and he was like, well, you may not have to use a microphone.
Wow.
And because I'm known for being really loud when I sing. But I was just, dude, I was smitten by him anyway. And just the way he came across, like, he did have an uncanny and remarkable ability to make the artist feel loved and appreciated and cared for. The short time I was able to be around him, because I was lucky enough to be around him many more times before he passed away, he was just a huge part of my life even before I met him, because when I was 14 years old, my dad changed my life. He gave me an anthology tape of a guy named Otis Redding.
Oh, man.
And I was listening to hardcore punk and like metal at the time. And my dad was just like, I don't know what these people are singing about. I don't know why they're so mad. You know, he was like, but I want to give you something. And I didn't think anything about it. I was like, you know, I just tossed it in a pile or something. And then 2 weeks later, I was rummaging through my room or something. I'll never forget it. I found it. And I was like, what could it hurt? So I put it in. And literally the first song on the anthology was a song called Love Man. And I had never heard someone sound like that before. And this guy, Otis Redding, opened up this amazing door, man, that Otis Redding got me to Marvin Gaye and Al Green and Percy Sledge, and Percy Sledge got me to Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and Nina Simone, and like opened up this whole big, beautiful door into Motown and a different style. It got me into jazz and, you know, Miles Davis and all these things. And, you know, Otis Redding and Ahmet Ertegun were really, really close, and they were really good friends. And just learning that history, you know, I'm sitting across from this man that has inspired not only the artist.
Signed Aretha. I mean,
Ray Charles.
Ray.
I mean, you know, you can get the list is insane. So I still to this day, you know, when I walk into the presence of Atlantic Records, I dreamed about being on Atlantic since I was like, you know, 10 years old.
Well, the home of Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
You know, all these amazing bands.
Absolutely.
Brent Smith from Shinedown, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, man. Thanks for giving me all this time. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.